Hello and welcome to my YouTube channel. Today's topic is going to be the IQ, or how to prevent getting dumber with age, as that's the natural progression of IQ as you get older. And as with many topics, I prepared some slides, so let's dig into it. And first, the obligatory meme. And as you can see clearly in this picture, with 25 your IQ is perfectly fine, and as soon as you reach the age of 26, where the decline typically begins, you are instantly, well, a moron. Well, it obviously doesn't happen as fast, but from the age of 25 onwards, your IQ typically gets lower and lower with age. And during this presentation we will see what we can do about it. Okay, first of all, as always, a small definition. What is intelligence even? And intelligence is typically measured and defined by IQ tests. And IQ tests generally examine the general problem-solving capacities of the human brain. And they usually test things like pattern recognition, the mental capability to transform and move shapes in 3 dimensions, and your ability to extrapolate. But an IQ test is one of the best heuristics we have to determine future success. But on the other hand, it is just that, a heuristic. It tests very general skills and makes a prediction about what your future will bring. But in a sense, it's still a prediction. Okay, let's now come to 2 key observations. And the observation number 1 is that people get dumber and slower with age in most cases. And I think you can pretty much verify that in everyday life, as people that are older are generally slower, with very few exceptions. But observation number 2 states that people that meditate about 15 minutes a day still possess the average learning speed of a person that is about 25 years younger. That could be verified in several studies. And the question is now, why is that so? Is it a correlation or is it a causation? And we will find out during this presentation. Okay, but first, what are the factors that have an influence on the intelligence? And first, a part of the intelligence is innate, and another part is environmental. Since we are born based on DNA, there's no way around the genetic component. It will always play a role and determine our starting position, let's say. But since the first and only children are way more intelligent and successful on average, the environment, as the amount of parental attention, also contributes a lot, as well as good schools, for example. I think there's no denying that the education has a huge influence on future success. Strict schools produce more successful children, while the opposite, schools, very free schools, typically produce not so good, well, equipped pupils for later life. And another interesting point is that the innate part becomes less important with age. And since we cannot influence our genes, it makes sense to focus on the things that we can influence, and that would be environmental mainly. Okay, now for some basic explanation. I view intelligence as adaptation speed, and learning can be viewed as your capability and efficiency to adapt to your surroundings, whatever they are. If you're intelligent, you can maneuver in your environment much more successful than a person that is not as intelligent. You can use tools, you can shape the environment to your advantage, etc. And I define intelligence as correct adaptation or learning speed. And this speed is determined mainly by the structure and functioning of the brain, while the microscopic topology is rather immutable and we are burst with it, let's say. Other areas are subject to a lot of neuroplasticity, aka The way we perceive and the things we perceive have a major influence on the structure of our brain, aka they change the brain all the time. And the brain only stays good at adaptation, as with any adaptation really, if it has to. Everything that is not used is lost with the human body, as we have an energy conservation drive, pretty much, that really influences everything. Muscles that are not used will soon be removed by the body and converted to energy. And a similar process goes with the brain. And to stay intelligent or become more intelligent, you have to constantly supply an adaptable stimulus to the brain and constantly challenge yourself up to old age. Okay, but now to a more bright topic, how to fix the natural IQ decline. And I personally only know of 3 proven ways that have a positive influence on your mental capacities. The first one is rather intuitive. It's healthy eating in moderation. And that's because you supply your body and brain with the required building blocks. And because of the moderation, not too much junk. The second thing is healthy exercising. And by exercising, you increase the transportation efficiency of the building blocks and the waste removal of your body. As we train, we increase our blood flow and thereby make it more efficient to move nutrients around the body and to remove waste from the body. And the third part is meditation. And meditation is, in effect, the efficient supply of adaptable stimulus to preserve neuroplasticity. And exercising and nutrition supply favorable physical conditions for intelligence by guaranteeing metabolic waste disposal and the surplus of building blocks, let's say. But those 3 points aren't worth equally much. Meditation outweighs all of the above. Meditation has a much more profound influence on the intelligence than the other stated points, which is rather interesting. Okay, and how does meditation work? What is my personal theory there? The conscious part of your brain is in essence a sequential processor, and the processor is constantly crowded with all kinds of garbage thoughts in general that contribute nothing to the task at hand. And I argue that a tiny proportion, maybe even less than 10% of thoughts, help to solve a given problem. And meditation increases mindfulness and concentration, and it equips you with the capability to discontinue useless thoughts and combat the wandering mind syndrome. And the wandering mind syndrome is in essence just random thoughts popping up all the time in your head. And those random thoughts make up a huge proportion of your thoughts in general. And the fewer wandering thoughts or random thoughts you have, the more thoughts you have that are on topic. And a strong meditation habit progressively increases the proportion of thoughts that is directed at a given problem, which makes you much more efficient at solving that problem in theory. So in summary, what are the takeaway points? First, healthy eating, healthy exercise, and meditation help you to stay smart, even with old age. Second, the brain adapts to its workload. Use it or lose it. If you don't use your brain all the time, it will lose its functioning over time. If you always do the same thing, you will get dumber with age, and there's no way around it. You have to constantly challenge yourself, and meditation is the best way I know of to do that. You have to constantly bring forth effort to stay on the meditation object, and while doing that, you also increase the amount of, let's call it CPU power you can direct at a given problem. And people that meditate a lot experience next to no decline in mental capacity or intelligence, and even often experience an increase in mental capacity, and from personal experience I can agree with that. Further, meditation helps having thoughts that are on topic, and allows you to use more of your brain effectively, just by being able to control what you think effectively. And that's something that most people cannot do, and they will constantly get lost in thought and are most of the time very inefficient with what they do. And a person that meditates and is otherwise the same as someone else will always be better, no matter what they do, in my opinion. So it's really worth to pick up this habit. Okay, that pretty much summarizes today's topic. I hope you learned something. If you liked the video, feel free to subscribe. And if you feel like I missed some important points or made mistakes in the video, feel free to let me know in the comment section, and I might correct that misinformation in the future, and if I did too much wrong, maybe in another video. But until then, I wish you a pleasant day, and goodbye.